Good morning, guys. How are you? Are you ready to wrap up Machu Picchu? Well, if you are, I need you to turn to page 72 and 73 for me, okay? All right. Are we there yet? If you're not, pause and get there and then restart me up, okay, guys? So let's begin by going over the words to know, the vocabulary of page 72 and 73. We have excavate, irrigation, and theory. All right, so we're going to take those backwards. Theory, very simple, an unproven idea. I will say, though, when you get to the academia field, which that means people who spend their lives studying, say, history, or they're archaeologists, a lot of times when they come up with a theory, it's a pretty darn good theory. It just means that there's not enough concrete evidence to say this happened on this day at this time, and here is the rock bottom proof, because I have written text that I found from a long ago. A lot of times we go by the ruins we find, by the life and the culture that we study, and we can do a pretty good guess. And when we say a pretty good guess, that's what a theory is. It's an unproven idea, okay? All right. Irrigation. Irrigation. Very simple definition. It is a water system of pipes or ditches that takes water from one place and distributes it and puts it somewhere else. In ancient civilization, they used irrigation to water their crops. Okay? All right. So it is a system of ditches and pipes that gets water from one place and takes it somewhere else. Okay? All right. And when we talk about ancient civilization time, a lot of them used the first irrigation systems to help get water from a river or a water source up in the mountains, like the stream when the snow melts, to help feed their, to help water, sorry, not feed, but to help water their crops. Okay, guys? All right. And the last one we have is excavate. Another simple one. Excavate means to dig up dirt. You dig up dirt to find something that's buried in the ground. That's all you do. Dig up dirt to find something that's buried. All right. Now, on page 72, the article that we're reading, this talks about the palace of the Earth Shaker. Okay, the Earth Shaker is, and I know I'm probably pronouncing his name wrong. I'll look it up and see if I can find the correct way to pronounce it, but I'm saying Machu, Emperor Machu. All right, so there's some theories about this ruins, Machu Picchu, that was found or was rediscovered. All right. So let's look at paragraph 8 real quick. It talks about that a lot has been learned since Bingham brought the attention of Machu Picchu back to the world. Okay, remember, this was never a lost civilization. It's just the world really didn't know about it. But the local people have always known about it. Okay? But he brought the attention back to it when he kind of had his day back in 1911, when that little boy took him around that mountain ridge and through a forest, past some stone houses to this cave that had these wonderful stone columns in it, and then you had the dome, and then there was the stairway, and he walked up the stairway, and then boom, there was this beautiful, just multi-tiered, flat plateau, terraced in the mountains, and there was Machu Picchu. And so he just kind of brought it back to the world's attention. Okay? All right. Let's start with Cite Evidence A. Okay? Cite Evidence A in paragraph 8 and 9 underline phrases that point to a passage in time. Remember, we really are talking about how things happened in order with this text, and how important time sequence, how sequencing and time is important when we read, because it lets our brain put things in order so a story or an article that we're reading makes sense, okay? Our brain likes to put things in order, okay? So we're going to underline. So let's look in paragraph 8 first. All right, go to the very second line of paragraph 8. It says, since Bingham's day. You just need to underline that. It's actually right above irrigation. Irrigation, that's in the bold black print. If you go literally right above it, just underline since Bingham's day. All right, let's go to paragraph 9. Okay, guys? All right. So I want you to read that paragraph, so pause me and see if you can underline. There's going to be 2 things in there that tell us about time. Okay? So pause me now. Okay. Did you read it in your back? Awesome. Okay, so there's 2. Can anybody tell me the first one? I know what people are going to say. Did you say from 2008? That was an easy one. All you had to do was look down, and when you saw the year, you knew immediately that was time. So you guys are super smart. So underline from 2008 in that paragraph, okay? And then if you go right above it, you'll see where it says Machu Picchu. Okay, if you go right above Machu Picchu, you're going to see the 2 words that says more recently. See, recently. So recently we had Halloween. So, so that's what recently means, something that happened in a relatively short time. So that is definitely a time word, recently. Okay. Like think about this. Like, have you talked to your grandparents recently? Like, have you talked to your grandparents? Like, have you talked to them in the last, like several days or the last week or 2? That's what recently means. So that might be a better example than the Halloween one. So if someone asked you a question like, have you talked to your grandparents recently? And you could go, oh yeah, I talked to them just last night. So see, we're using time to let people know how things are working. Almost like in a timeline, we put things in order, okay? Great. Now, let's look at Site Evidence B. Circle information in paragraph 10 and 11 that helps you figure out how long the Inca lived in Machu Picchu. What helped in Inca civilization? Okay, so now we're going to be doing some circling, and we are going to start in paragraph 10 and 11. So I want you to pause me really quick. And there are 3 things that you need to circle. There's going to be 1 thing you need to circle in 10, and there's 2 that you need to circle in paragraph 11. So 1 in paragraph 10 and 2 in paragraph 11. So pause me. And I'm back. So have you read them? And have you circled the 3? And if you didn't circle all 3, it's okay, because we're getting ready to go over it, okay? So in paragraph 10, now remember the question. Circle information that helps you figure out how long, once again, it's that time thing, how long the Inca lived in Machu Picchu. Guys, dead giveaway in paragraph 10. I see a year. That's right, around AD 1415. So that's telling you when people are thinking that's about when Machu Picchu was built. It was built around AD 1450. Okay? It was built around 1450. Now let's go down to paragraph 11. I see another number. And number usually helps us with time in sequence, doesn't it? So you need to have circled about 100 years after building it. Circle about 100 years after building it. Good job. Okay, so now everybody, let's look on page 73. And it says finding Machu Picchu. So let's just wrap this up. Okay, it says, after Bingham's discovery, other travelers claimed that they had discovered the ruins before him, to have discovered the ruins before him. There is some evidence that Bingham was not the first foreigner to find the site, but he was the first to excavate the ruins. He photographed Machu Picchu, and he wrote about it in detail. It was Bingham who brought these wondrous ruins to the attention of the whole world. Okay, so you can't really give him credit for discovering, because a lot of people have come after this and say, oh, we've seen those. Oh yeah, we saw that. And then of course, remember the local people. They all knew they were there. So it's not like Machu Picchu was lost, like a lost city. Like, trying to think. Have you ever heard of Pompeii? Pompeii was during the Greek civilization, and there was a massive Vesuvius, this massive volcano eruption. And this Greek city, Pompeii or town, got completely covered and buried in ash and was lost for thousands of years. And that actually was a lost city. It was discovered, and then it was truly excavated. They built down, and they literally found this lost city, and it was completely preserved. It's quite fascinating. So, maybe your parents can show you some pictures of Pompeii. Now, that was actually a lost city that was discovered. Machu Picchu the world didn't know about it, but it wasn't lost. The local people knew about it. Other people after Bingham, started photographing and saying, oh, look at this and everything. And some people came to like, yeah, we saw that. But he actually was a scholar. He took pictures. He excavated the site. Discovered more about the Inca culture and their civilization. Why was this place abandoned? Even though we don't have concrete evidence, there's really good theories out there. So that's the difference of like discovering something and bringing attention to the world. And that's what Bingham did. He brought Machu Picchu to the world stage, but it was not a lost city. Okay, it wasn't something like truly discovered because people knew where it was. All right, excuse me. So let's do the comprehension checks, guys. It says, according to the text, until Bingham found Machu Picchu, A, he had never seen Incan ruins. B, he thought it was only a legend. C, the site was completely hidden underground. And D, the site was known to only a few locals. Okay, so we're going to circle D for that. The site was known to only a few locals. And basically, it was the farmers and the villagers who lived up higher in the mountains. People who lived farther away probably didn't necessarily know it was there. But a lot of the local farmers and the villagers and things that lived up higher in the mountain range who used the old Inca terraces to build, to grow their crops. I'm sorry, I'm not restarting this video. This is like take 6 this morning. All right, so the villagers who lived up in the mountains actually used some of the Inca terraces that were already there, the much more rundown ones, to grow their crops, much the way the Inca civilization did. Okay, that's what the terraces were built for. All right, 2. What was an effect of Bingham's having found Machu Picchu? A, archaeologists no longer study Machu Picchu. B, scholars learn how the Inca Empire died. C, Machu Picchu was brought to the attention of the world. Or D, there's an agreement why Machu Picchu was built. So the effect that Bingham having found Machu Picchu, and I'm going to do quotations in found, it's C, he brought it to the attention of the world. Okay, because he didn't find it. It was already there, and people knew about it. Not a lot, but people knew about it. So you can't find something that people already know where it is. And that's in my opinion. So I'm going to put quotation marks around found. Okay, and that's also a big debate that a lot of scholars have about what kind of credit do you give Bingham. So a lot of people just give him a credit that he brought Machu Picchu to the world stage. All right, number 3. What caused the emperor of Incan who built Machu Picchu to be known as the Earthshaker? Okay, Pachacuti. He was the emperor and believed that he actually is the one who had Machu Picchu built. It was built during his reign as emperor. And he was known as the Earthshaker because of warfare. He was a brilliant warrior. And he took his small chiefdom, and turned it into this Inca civilization. So he was a chieftain, and his ability with strategy and how he fought wars, he was allowed to take his small chieftain, his small village, and he created this Inca civilization. Okay? Now, he turned it truly into a mighty empire. Now, let's talk about... Okay, it says, did local people think it was good or bad that Bingham was exploring their lands? What do you think? Did the local people think it was good or bad that Hiram Bingham was exploring their land? Think about everything that we've read. Yes, they thought it was a good idea because they actually had, remember, we started out with Arteaga, and they were camped near his home in his village that he lived at, basically the bottom of the mountains. And he was like, hey, I can take you up to where some ruins are. I know the way. Remember, he led them through the jungle. He led them across the bridge over the Urubamba raging river. Then took them up the steep mountain and actually got them to this village. Okay, so he was very helpful. And then, of course, the people in the village, and of course, Bingham's like, these are some terraces. I mean, they're old and not in the best shape, but this looks like something the Incas would use, from what I know of their civilization, these terraces. They like to do these terraces to grow their crops. So he's noticing that. So then, of course, the villagers up there in the mountains where they're resting, they're like, oh, yeah, we can take you some sort of ruins. And, of course, Arteaga, he didn't want to go. He was tired. He was resting. And so one of the younger boys says, hey, I'll take you. And then he leads them the final way to Machu Picchu. So, yes, the people who lived there thought it was a good idea. They had no problem. Sure, we'll take you to see some ruins. All right. And then, was the Inca civilization advanced? Go back and think. Pause. If you have to pause me, go back and think. Was the Inca civilization advanced? All right. Yes. Yes. They built, listen to this, they built these stone terraces that are still used today. They built cobbled street roads that people still use today. Also, they've discovered, with excavating the ruins of Machu Picchu, these stone houses and buildings that were built up there were literally built to withstand earthquakes. So if an earthquake happened, this stone building is not falling down. So they were actually the stone houses that were built during the Inca civilization, especially up on Machu Picchu, were actually built to withstand an earthquake. So, guys, I hope that you have enjoyed finding out about Machu Picchu, and especially go back and read, I think, The Palace of the Earthshaker, which they really talk about Machu Picchu. And there's a lot of debate on what Machu Picchu used to be. So that's really interesting. I found that quite fascinating. But guys, I want y'all to have a great day. We have finished the text of Finding Machu Picchu. So I will see you tomorrow, and we will do a review for the test on Friday. So you will be back with me on Friday, and we will take our test in class. All right, guys. Until tomorrow. Bye.